Memorial of our teachers entering Nirvana +1. This is Saturday. Tomorrow is the big day where we do our Chuangong, we do our bowing, we go to the Sharira, and everyone looks backwards at Master Hua's life. And it's, Nirvana is not a joyful moment, but it's a memorial moment. But this year, because it's the 30th anniversary, we thought, why not look forward? Why not look at all the things that our teacher planted in the ground, all the seeds that he put in the ground? Take a look at the sprouts that are coming up, the flowers that are opened already, and the fruits of Shifu's hard work spreading the Dharma that have already come to fruition. So that's what tonight is about. Now, I've been in Australia personally. My name is Heng Sure, and we are now in broadcasting to Australia, to China, to Taiwan, to Hong Kong, to Vietnam, to Canada, all over the US, and to Europe as well, although it's late at night in Europe. But being back in Berkeley, I went to my photo box and I opened a big box of photos that I haven't seen for some time. Lots of envelopes of where there are photographs, the old stack that you used to get. And I opened one up and it said, Shifu's Nirvana 2001. And I thought, whoa, that's interesting. 24 years ago, quarter of a century ago. And I opened the photos and started going through them, and I saw the same faces telling probably the same stories about our teacher. And the interesting thing is, we have continued to grow over the years. 24 years ago, there weren't this many people coming to hear about our teacher. Now, why is that different or interesting? Confucius, Kong Lao Fuzi, the famous teacher, contemporary of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, he had, they say, 1,300 disciples who followed him around, and he was well known at the time, not a very successful teacher. Many people didn't like his teaching about virtue. But years after his demise, there was nobody left. All the students went away. 30 years after our teacher's Nirvana, we are growing, and I'm looking out at young people's faces. Why is that? That's Shifu's devotion to education, and saying through education, we are going to spread the Dharma. So this is the flowers and the fruits that we're talking about. So welcome. Tonight we got some wonderful stories that we hear them year after year. 30 years we've heard the same teachings about our teacher, and yet somehow it's fresh every year. Dharma Master Lai, to my right, Dharma Master Heng Lai is going to start out tonight. He was present when the first DRBA car drove through the gates of City of 10,000 Buddhas. Anybody ever curious about what it was like back then when it was a hospital? Well, he can tell you, and he's going to do that tonight. Then to my left is Dharma Master Heng Liang, who is a jack of all trades in the Sangha. She was the chief Wano. Whenever there was a big ceremony that had to be done, Dharma Master Liang would show up to be the voice that we listen to. If you go back to some of our old BTTS publications and you look at the covers, they are done by hand calligraphy with a pen and ink. One mistake and you start over, right? Those covers were done, many of them, by Dharma Master Heng Liang, and Jerry Jo Idarius, her teacher of calligraphy. So she's been a witness to the Zheng Fa Fo Xue Yuan, the Right Dharma Buddhist Academy, and all these bit of our history Dharma Master Liang has been a witness to. To my right is Upasaka John Vu, who is a professor. He's got his degree from Carnegie Mellon in computer science and AI, and he is a well-known author in the Vietnamese American Buddhist community, and he's a member of our board of directors and is overseeing many of our bigger projects here, kind of looking across the tops of the waves, right? And then Sue Rounds is one of those faces who was speaking back in 2001. Sue has just recently ended a remarkable career as Chancellor and President of Dharma Realm Buddhist University. She retired. I won't mention her age, but she kept working on much longer than most people would have. They would have quit long ago. But Sue carried on and watched DRBU come to the current success and fruition. So these are our speakers tonight, and I'm going to invite Dharma Master Heng Lai, who is the Managing Director of Snow Mountain Monastery up in Index, Washington. And I might mention, just by the way, that Dharma Master Lai and I stood on that stage, which was a basketball court, and received the precepts together 49 years ago. So next year we'll both be 50 years in robes, and we became bhikshus right behind us. You should have seen it. There was a basketball hoop, a net at the time. This was a basketball court. There were not these wonderful Buddhas there at the time. So Dharma Master Lai has been part of not only City of 10,000 Buddhas, but also Gold Mountain Monastery, and also Buddhist Lecture Hall, when Shifu first started seriously teaching in the West. So, Dharma Master, what stories have you got for us tonight?
Venerable Master, Great Assembly, Om.noon.
Om.noon.
I'm very happy to be here. This theme tonight is about the future, so I should have a little future in my talk. I'd be right. We're currently translating 3 times a week over the internet to all of Master's verses and all the Master's songs that he wrote, and all the Master's when he opened up light on the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas of different temples. And a lot of it's never been translated into English, so we're working on translating all of the Master's verses over the years, which is quite a number. And that's what our little project is up at Snow Mountain. It's not as big as BTTS's project, but at least it's a learning experience for me. City of 10,000 Buddhas is really big. It used to be a Mendocino hospital, as most of you know already. But we found this through many years ago, in 1974, I believe, was the first time I heard about it through a realtor called up and said, I don't know if you guys are interested, but there's a big property up there in Mendocino County near Ukiah for sale. It used to be a mental hospital, and it's basically a city. He said that you can have their own firehouse. So I said, oh, okay, I'll tell our master. It sounds pretty interesting. So as soon as I hung up, Sherpa called down, because he was up on the 3rd floor. He always called down to the office. Yeah, Sherpa, there's this big city here. Yeah. I said, it's got a whole bunch of buildings and several thousand square foot of different kinds of rooms and dorms and assembly halls. He says, how? He says, he said, you all should take a look. We should all take a look. And so we couldn't do it at that moment because we had to go up to Seattle. Because in that time, Hung Ju and Hung Yo, who are our bowing monks, they did Sambui Bai, 3 steps, 1 bow, pilgrimage from San Francisco up to Washington State. And they had just made it to Seattle, so the master, we were organizing a kind of a welcoming world peace gathering in Seward Park in Seattle. And so we had to do that first, so we all went up there and did that. And when we were finished, the Shifu told us, okay, you and Gofa and Gojan and Randy, and the 4 of us got into Gofa, who's Bob Olson's pickup truck, and he says, you guys take a look on the way back at this at this big place. I said, okay, sure. So we went down the coastal highway instead of Highway 5. We went down coastal highway. And when we got there, we spent several hours. We came here, and there were 2 people to meet us, Wally German and Mr. Ruddick were here, and they showed us all over the property. And it took us a long time because it's so big. And John Heng Sure here, he had a camera. In those days, there were no digital cameras, so he had a camera. And he was taking roll after roll of pictures of all these buildings inside and out. And it took us all this time. It was overwhelming how big this place was. And so we got back in the truck and went back to Gold Mountain later in the evening. The master, as soon as we got in the door, Heng Sure went upstairs. At that time we were laymen. So Heng Sure went upstairs and started to develop all these rolls of film he'd just taken. We had a little dark room at Gold Mountain. So he went up there to do all this. And at that same time, the master called down to the office again. He says, yeah, Shifu, we just got through looking at the hospital. It's really big. And it goes on, so I started describing all these places we looked at. And I said, also, Gojan's up there, he's developing all this film to show Shifu pictures. And take a look. Shifu says, no need, I already seen it. So all that film, we still have it of when we first got here. And and the master was not afraid of this place at all. He said, oh, it's interesting, we'll go take a look. Maybe we'll buy some of it. At that time we had no money. DRBA, it wasn't even DRBA, it was just SABA, Signed American Blues Association. And at that time we had no money to speak of, maybe $100K or so in the bank. I have no idea how much money we had. Yeah, we'd go out and get our food from the dumpster, whatever. And everybody, a lot of lay people at that time got really nervous. Shifu, you can't buy such a big place. We don't have the money. We don't have the people to take care of it. They were really nervous. Shifu says, yeah, it's probably not big enough. So he wasn't turned at all by the size of it. And so the master is a master at many things. He's also a master negotiator. And the person who owned this was a vineyard. They bought it from the government, from the state of California. It used to be a mental hospital, and they put it up for auction, and the vineyard bought it, Vinifera Vineyard. But they didn't want the buildings. They just wanted the land for their grapes. And so they needed to get rid of this huge white elephant they had. And so many groups looked at it, but nobody made an offer. So the master, over time, after we looked at it back and forth, we came up here a few times, the master said, I think maybe we'll buy just the hospital. And the guy who owned the vineyard said, oh, no, we can't possibly just sell one building. We have to sell the whole thing.
They were going to sell it to Mendocino College for $1. Mendocino College said no deal. They refused.
Yeah, at that time, there were grant money available to colleges, but there wasn't grant money to remodel old buildings, only grant money for new stuff. So they couldn't afford to get it. So nobody could buy it, and nobody was buying it. And they had this, it was a big drain on this vineyard because they had to hire 10 guys just to mow the lawn. And they had all the sprinklers going every day, and it was very costly for them. So they really wanted to get rid of it. And then over time, the owner finally said, okay, I'll sell you the hospital, you're so desperate. And she said, well, maybe we'll buy the Great Compassion House and Joyce Giving House too, those two quads. I think maybe they're really nice, maybe we'll buy those too. So yeah, okay. But then he wanted to do a deal. And then later, after back and forth, finally the master says, maybe we'll just buy the whole thing. And so this went on, and people, our disciples, are getting really nervous. They said, Shifu, we don't know what to do. How are we going to take care of this? Shifu said, don't worry, everything's okay. but we don't have any money. Don't worry, everything's okay. So we finally set on a price, which was today, it'd be just pennies on the dollar. And we bought the place and slowly started moving up here. And after we finished, it was 1976 by the time the closing happened, when they closed the deal finally and signed all the papers. And we had a thing where we were going to take 20 years to pay it off. And everybody thought we'd immediately move up here. Because we were at Gold Mountain, which is the old factory building there and down the Mission District of San Francisco. And it was a relatively small building. And everybody thought, well, Sherpa will probably move up to the city of 10,000 Buddhists and we'll all go move up there. But Sherpa didn't even change his routine at all. He lectured 2 or 3 times a day. And we do Alka Wonka Shangung as usual. And as if nothing happened. People getting really nervous. What's going on? Why are we not just sitting down here? He said just a handful of people up there. He said Bob Olson and Guosun, who's in Jingong now, and said a few people up here to take care of getting some water going, a water well, and other things, but didn't move up here right away. He had only one monk, former Hengguan, was up here, and a handful of laymen just to keep an eye on the place. The rest of the time, they saw Gold Mountain. People were just getting more and more nervous. And more of our disciples, our lay disciples, started going up here and looking at all those nice houses on Cottage Lane. They said, boy, if our family could move into one of these, it'd be really wonderful. So they slowly start moving up into these houses. And the master was not very happy about that. But he was basically training us. He said, don't be greedy. He says, this is a big place. We'll start to manage it when time is ripe. And he didn't actually start moving up here until almost a year later. It was just slowly we started having more and more things happen here. And so the city of 10,000 Buddhists slowly grew. We had our first ordination with Heng Sure and myself. We had Bhikshuni also leave home. And that was done when this was just a gymnasium. And I think they threw down an old shag rug, and that was it. And if you take up this carpet here, you probably still see the gym floor with all the painting on it. And that was our first experience. So fortunately, my time's running out. I'm really happy.
What was the Tathagata monastery like going into the prison?
Well, that's what Chirfu said, that will be the men's monastery, this place. And then we looked up the history and said, wait a minute, this was a criminally insane facility for criminals, for crazy criminals. It had really tiny little cells in it and real thick doors. So we were kind of nervous moving into the place. And we had a layman who was there, Lee Eagleson. And at night, he woke up in the middle of the night, he started screaming and running up and down the hallways, crying. And Sherpa called the next day, what happened? He goes, this Lee Eagleson he said he saw a ghost and somebody sat on him, he couldn't get up. And he said, that was just a Kulumbana ghost, don't worry about it. He says, start reciting Guan Yin. Help cross over all those former inmates.
Apparently, there was only one person ever escaped from the maximum security prison there. Squeezed his body through this ventilation vent up above in his room, dropped to the ground, ran into the city of Ukiah and got arrested right away and sent back. He was the only person who ever escaped. But the funny part about the monks is, we don't say, let us out, let us out. The monks go in there and say, lock us in, lock us in. We're home finally. So that's some of the background of City of 10,000 Buddhas. And there was a signing ceremony down at Gold Mountain Monastery with Beckstoffer, the wine grower, the vendor, and his lawyer was there. And I have a photograph of Dharma Master Lai and myself and Richard Josephson, I don't know if Richard's here. We were making sure that the deal went through. We were fasting, I remember. And this is a guy who can fast for a long time. I am not a faster. Shifu told me that's not my Dharma job. But Heng Lai did 18-day fast, 3 or 4 times? He was able to not eat for 36 days. Cup of water, 36 days. So this is not that fast, but we were fasting to make sure that the deal went through. And we had this commemorative photo. It's one of the photos that I uncovered of Shifu signing the deal to buy the city of 10,000 Buddhas. And I remember one day Master Hua said, he said, this place already exists up in the heavens. He said, we're just recreating it down here on earth. He says, I've already got the blueprint. He says, this is just the earthly version of what pre-existed up in the heavens. You understand? Or you're like, no, Shifu, we totally do not understand that, but if you say so, All right. Switching over to my left, Dharma Master Heng Liang, as I told you about her variety of skills and she's been a witness to all of the growth of the Bhikshuni Sangha here in the U.S. I actually, this will embarrass her probably, I actually remember when my pilgrimage was the second 3 steps, 1 bow. Heng Ju and Heng Yo were the first ones. But we were bowing along somewhere in Big Sur, and Shifu came down with Fang Guowu and a young laywoman who had been doing Tai Chi Chuan, Susan Anderson. And that was the future Dharma Master Heng Liang. So I remember seeing her when she was still, just had arrived, the city of 10,000 Buddhas. So, Dharma Master, please.
So I was introduced as a Wayno, and so you're going to be very surprised to hear my voice. Because for some reason today, my voice got stuck up. So the sound won't be pleasant, but I hope the story will be a happy one for you. Now, I was told to tell story, so now Dharma Master Sure said we need to be, go into the future. So a story, by definition, is something about the past. In the future, of course, something about now, into the future. I was also instructed to give updates on DRBA way places. And so, to start with the future, I will start with the DRBA way places, and I'll tell my story at the end. So the most important thing to report on the branches is that they continue on as places of spiritual refuge for sincere seekers and practitioners. Moreover, the Sangha members living in them continue to practice diligently in accord with the Venerable Master's teaching and training, and they continue to develop their skills in turning the Dharma wheel, conducting special ceremonies and events, and providing Buddhist education and activities for all ages. This in itself, 30 years after the Venerable Master's physical departure from this world, is remarkable, unprecedented. And it's all due to the Master's virtue, compassion, wisdom, and tireless and skillful means in teaching and transforming his disciples and establishing programs in way places around the world, including the US, Canada, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, Australia, and now newly established in Paris, France. So we've got almost, maybe all of the continents covered. Now, I think Dharma Master Sure mentioned today that 29 way places? On the DRBA website are listed 25. This list can be found on the DRBA English website under locations, on the drop-down menu at the top, and you will get a whole list of all of these 25 way places, and you just click the name of the way place and you will get to their official website, and then you can see all of the wonderful things that are going on in them. You'll find a treasure trove of living Dharma and scheduled filled with ceremonies, retreats, lecture series, classes, special events. And now most DRBA way places also offer many of these things online. So no matter where you live, you can actually visit virtually every single DRBA branch. But since the time is limited, I'm just going to briefly mention, give you a few extensive updates for some of the branches over the past 5 years. I can't do an extensive list of all the branches because there are too many. We'll start with CDDB here at CDDB. Within the past 5 years, a CDDB, of course, houses K through 12 education and also post-secondary education through the master's degree, and Sue Rounds will talk about that later. Besides that, CDB continues to offer its annual Dharma assemblies, including this one. And also it has been renovating and some of these old buildings, including the Dharma, the Mountain Gate, the Dizang Hall. You wouldn't know it when you see it today, but the Dizang Hall was once the central heating plant for the whole city of 10,000 Buddhas. It had a huge, huge furnace in it, and there were these huge pipes that sent hot air underground to all of the buildings.
The heating plant is, if this wall wasn't there, you could look at it. It had the boilers that run the largest cargo ships at the time. The C4 cargo vessels ran with the same boiler. Shifu fired it up one night. The fuel bill for one night, $6,000 to heat the entire city. So we shut it down the next day.
And it used to have a huge smokestack. But now you see it's Erstore Hall, adorned, beautiful place. In addition, the East Campus project has continued. I'm very sorry for my voice. And I'm trying to find the spot where it doesn't sound like that. And I'm not sure if that will help. I just have to find the sweet spot. And so the back project has continued. Phase 1 is completed. And we're progressing through phase 2. I think I sound a little bit like Robert Kennedy right now. I hate to bring that up. It's kind of depressing. Anyway, so CDR is the next biggest way place in DRBA. Shifu established that in 1994, about a year before he went to Nirvana, as a way place for training nuns, especially in the precepts. But CDR also has a master plan which was left by the Venerable Master himself, and includes a huge Buddha hall, which they have completed the Shifu's design for, and now they're in the process of getting permits to build. And meanwhile, they have maintained and upgraded all of the other buildings there. So they're very vigorous and busy. I want to also point out that all of our way places are understaffed. So if anybody wants to leave home and become a nun, to help us staff our way places, you can contact us. So next I'm going to talk about in the north, Gold Buddha Monastery. Last year, Gold Buddha Monastery held its 40th anniversary. So Dharma Master Sure was there in the very beginning. That was a long time ago. And they also announced new construction of the Manjushri Pavilion Meditation and Buddhist Center across the street from the Buddha Hall, current monastery. And the Manjushri Pavilion has now started construction, and it will consist of a multi-story building and an underground parking garage. It will offer a structured program to pursue systematic Buddhist knowledge and spiritual growth, and it will also be a residential apartment building with priority given to elderly practitioners. Meanwhile, Gold Buddha Monastery continues to offer its usual Dharma assemblies, Dharma talks, lectures, Sunday school, all kinds of activities. Avatamsaka Monastery in Calgary, Canada, has completed its beautiful new Buddha Hall on the top floor and continues to offer pure vegetarian food to the public, I believe, at Ambrosia Restaurant. The manager of AM also oversees a large property in Golden in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies. Very beautiful place. When the master was in the world, he announced that in the future, Golden would become a second CDDB and be a place where people could go when the rest of the world was uninhabitable, which might be happening sooner than we think. It has yet to be developed in that way, but in September of 2023, a 7-meter statue of Erstor Bodhisattva was installed there. Beautiful standing Erstor Bodhisattva to secure the way place. At Snow Mountain Monastery in the foothills where Dharma Master Lai is, he didn't mention it, but he also installed 18 arhats, correct? I'm not sure, 18.
Yeah, we did the 18 arhats and the 3 sages. Yes, we have 18 arhats on the path, just like Gold Coast Dharma Realm has, only they're not as big. And we have the 3 sages from the Tiantai, and that is Han Shan, Fan Kan, and Sure.
And yet to come is the Guanyin Pavilion, correct? That's the next project.
Yes, we're working on a pavilion.
Okay. And then within the past years, 5 years or so, Redwood Vihara in the Santa Cruz Mountains acquired 2 buildings. One very recently in this past year, and has wonderful activities there as well. However, I think they're not on the list of Dharma way places in the list of way places. So you can just go online and type in Redwood Vihara. You'll get information. Gold Summit Monastery in Seattle acquired a new building across the street to expand its abilities to cross over living beings. And in that building is a Chan Hall. And I think they also offer classes there and Sunday school and so on. The most recent one, in 2023, fall of 2023, after decades of a sincere and unwavering wish by the Master's faithful French disciples for DRBA to establish a way place there, members of DRBA, led by Dharma Master Lai, were invited to Paris to conduct a week-long Dharma assembly. During that Dharma assembly, DRBA was registered with the French government as a legal entity, which was formally announced on the final day of the Dharma assembly. With that, DRBA is now able to search for property to establish a physical way place there. And recently, a suitable building and location was found in Paris, and the Bhikshunis there are hoping to obtain government approval to complete the purchase and move in. Right now, they're offering summer camp, and we'll have Liang in France, Paris. And GCDR in Australia, where Dharma Master Sure spends much of his time, is now in the third stage of its expansion project. The first stage was completed in 2017. That was a beautiful Buddha Hall. And the second stage was completed in 2021, including the front entrance, the rear entrance, dome lanterns, the main gate, 4 heavenly kings, kitchen and dining hall, walkways, and a bookshop. And a lotus pond. And now they're in the third phase. The third phase is scheduled to begin construction this year, and it will be a multi-function center, a Guanyin hall, that will allow 200 people for meditation and 440 people for praying. And so you can see that all of the, I haven't been able to talk about all of the way places, but all of them are vigorously growing and expanding and offering spiritual refuges for people. Okay, so that's my report on the way places. Can you stand my voice, or should I stop?
No, keep going.
I still got time. My voice getting stronger. It must be the good energy in the hall that's doing that. So, now the stories. I'm going to talk about Shifu's concern for world peace with 2 stories and 2 historical reports, okay? The Venerable Master was an ultimate pioneer, and he achieved many firsts during his lifetime. One major one, of course, is to come from Asia to the US and cross over difficult Americans. But from youth, world peace was always one of the Master's major concerns. And world peace was also one of those themes that deeply resonated with his American disciples. A proof of this is that both 3 steps, 1 bow pilgrimages were dedicated to world peace. And when the Master established CDTB and changed the name of the association from Sino-American to Dharma Buddhist Association, he continued to stress world peace. For example, the 10,000 Buddhas repentance ceremony, which we practice every year, originally and to this day is dedicated to world peace. And thus, in the summer of 1987, the Master, in his amazing, vigorous, courageous, tireless, pioneering spirit, held 2 back-to-back huge events in CDTB that were both firsts in the US. The first one being the first Water, Land, and Air Dharma Assembly ever held in the US, and the second, the first Conference on World Religions. Both of these events were for the sake of world peace. He said this explicitly. One affecting the spiritual realm, that is water, land, and air, and the other, the human, socio-cultural, religious realm, which was the religious Conference on Religions. Stop me when my time is up, please. So the Water, Land, and Air Dharma Assembly was held July 17th to 24th. That's again in 1987. And Shifu invited 63 Buddhist monks from China to come. And if you know anything about modern China's history, you know that that in itself was a miracle, because at that time China was closed and Buddhism was still suffering from the Cultural Revolution. And so that in itself was amazing. This group was led by 3 very prominent monks in China, Abbots Mingyang and Zhang Chun, as well as Dharma Master Zhe Guang. And they held a 7-day, 24-hour Dharma assembly. And you may not know that this Dharma assembly was first composed in the year 505 AD to become the official Chinese Mahayana ceremony for rescuing souls who had died in war. Now, these souls are not just soldiers and people. These souls include every living being that exists on water, on land, and in the air. That means every living being on the planet. And we know that the ravages of war decimates the earth. And all the living beings that dwell upon it and creates an energy that covers the world in darkness and despair. And so this Dharma assembly is designed to cross these living beings over in order to mitigate the suffering, despair, and resentment that result from war and bring light and peace to the world. This Dharma assembly, therefore, was a most serious, traditional, stately, solemn, and dignified event.
It was held in the room that you're sitting in tonight.
Yes, and here was there were five dashi representing the five
masters.
Five masters representing the five directions Buddhas. Each master had a different color canopy behind him, and they performed the Yenko. The ceremony for feeding ghosts with flaming mouths. Very beautiful ceremony. Anyway, that would take a long time to further describe. But what I want to get at is that the master tirelessly worked before and during this Dharma assembly. And then, a week later, he hosted the Conference for World Religions. This was in the middle of the summer. And he was so respectful and gracious to the monks that he invited. He even one by one got down on his knees and offered recitation beads to all of the monks, even very young ones who had just recently become bhikshus. That just reveals Shifu's his selflessness and lack of ego. And anyway, after the spectacular completion of the Water, Air, and Land Dharma Assembly, and all those monks were preparing to return to China, what do you think the master did? What did he do? He gave each one a red packet with spending money and arranged them to visit two places in the U.S., an American shopping mall and Disneyland.
Oh, really?
So you can see Shifu really understands people very well. So after that, the master briefly returned to Gold Mountain Monastery to see off the communist officials who had accompanied the monks and followed them around day and night to make sure none of them escaped. And no doubt they weren't happy about the shopping mall in Disneyland. But they couldn't oppose because Shifu was already renowned in China as an enlightened master. They didn't dare oppose him. So as they drank tea together in Gold Mountain Monastery, the communist officials flattered Shanren, saying, "You are a national treasure of China. You should come back. You should come back to China, to your native country." How do you think Shanren responded? Well, he said, I think I was there when he said this. He said, "I won't go back there until you people change. You call yourselves communists, but I'm the real communist here. What do I mean by that? I don't keep anything for myself, but I give it all away to the community. That's the true meaning of communism. But you officials, on the other hand, you cheat and take from the people. Until that changes, I won't go back." So you see how fearless Shifu was. So as exhausting as all that was, he came back to CDTB to host the World Religions Conference. It was called the Conference of United World Religions. It was held August 1st through 8th. And again, he stated clearly, the purpose of the conference was to promote world peace. His rationale was that if all Buddhist leaders if all leaders of all the world religions could dialogue in mutual respect, how could the world not be peaceful? So in hosting this conference, is my time up yet?
Okay.
Should I keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. In hosting this conference, his intention, which he was interviewed in a newspaper, and he told the reporter that his intention was not to proselytize and to attempt to convert people to Buddhism. In fact, his hope was that each person of faith would adhere to the teachings of the founders of their respective religions, and that those founders did not contradict each other on a basic level. They all agreed to basic human ethics and virtues. So with this attitude of mutual respect and appreciation, the Master was able to bring together leaders and practitioners from many different religions. Each day there were 50 to 75 people attended, and each morning and afternoon the conference began with a keynote address for about an hour and a half, followed by an open mic. Mic was passed around, anybody could speak for 5 minutes. And from that first event, Shifu established the Institute of World Religions, first here at the City of 10,000 Buddhists, and then later moved it to Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. Now I will end my talk with a story from that event. I believe it was the final day of the conference, midsummer, midsummer, very, very hot. It was around 100 degrees that day. At that time, an extremely devout, you could say zealous, passionate Christian had made a pilgrimage all across the southern United States, carrying a big, heavy wooden cross, dragging it on his shoulder. And where did he end up? He ended up in front of our mountain gate on the last day of our conference with people he had picked up along the way, and they were all protesting. They were protesting Buddhism. They walked in a circle, and he carried his cross, and they carried their protest signs. Some of them said something about Buddhists being demons or whatever. Anyway.
Jesus knows everything you're doing is false.
Okay, Dharma Master Shure's mind is really clear. Okay, so every day Shifu would visit the AO to find out what's going, check things out, find out what's going wrong. And at that time, a monk, his Dharma name was Heng Sure, was behind the AO reception desk. And just as the master was walking in, Dharma Master Gong said, Shifu, there are these protesters at the mountain gate, and they're very angry. What should we do? And Shifu immediately said, oh, it's very hot. They must be tired. They must be hot. They must be thirsty. We should go there and invite them in. So he hopped on his golf cart, and he brought Heng Sure with him as he was a witness. He described this whole event. Got to the mountain gate, and Shifu, with the most welcoming, kind, childlike, open attitude said, he said, welcome, welcome. You must be very, very hot and tired. Don't protest there in front of the mountain gate. You can come in and protest. He said, first you stay in a nice cool building, and we will give you Coca-Cola. And then you can join our conference and you can protest there. And we will all listen to what you have to say. And so, of course, Shifu was so disarming, they couldn't say no. They didn't know what to say. They were nonplussed. And so they came in, they drank Coca-Cola, they cooled off, and they joined the afternoon conference. And during the conference, the usual pattern, there was a keynote speaker, and then the mic was passed around. And after a few people said a few words, one of the protesters abruptly stood up and said, I believe the only way to salvation is through faith in Jesus Christ. And so Shifu had been walking, he always walked around during these kind of events, smiling, and checking people out. And he turned to the protester and he said, "Well, I believe in you." And if you understand, that means that was 5 words that described the most profound Buddhist teachings. I believe in you. Okay, so that's the end of my story, and you can extract what you will from the meeting. And now my talk is over. Amitofo.
You found the sweet spot there, your voice cleaned up. So Shifu went out to the front gate. I'm going to add a detail. It's a wonderful story that you heard just now. Shifu went out, and the man with the cross had a big beard. He was about 6'4", and Shifu was tall for a Chinese, but still had to look up. Shifu walked directly up to the guy and looked up in his face and said, "Welcome, please come in." Grabbed the guy's white sackcloth robe and started to pull him physically into the gate. And the guy was like, he started to laugh. He said, "What are you doing? Don't do that. And then he realized he'd lost his cool. Stop that. So Shifu said, I was standing beside him. Shifu said, if you're going to come in, it's cool inside, like Dharma Master Liang said. If you're thirsty, we have cola for you to drink, or milk, or water. He said, do you know why I can say I welcome you? It's because I have Jesus' spirit of love in my heart for you. The guy's cross hit the ground behind a cloak, and they formed a huddle. Remember Huey, Dewey, and Louie, Uncle Scrooge's nephews? They would go. So they all drove away. They got into their van and drove away. Half an hour later, they came back. They washed their faces. They combed their hair, and they joined. And Tom McMillan, the Baptist preacher from Ukiah, he says, I don't know how you do it. We've had trouble with these guys forever. They're just chaos. He says, look, you tamed them. How did you do it? Shifu said, that's what I mean by no fighting. He said, Dr. Boo.
Buddha, Bodhisattva, Venerable Master, Dharma Master, and Dharma friends. My name is John Vu. My Dharma name is Chin Dao. Today, I would like to share some experience with my Shifu, Venerable Master Shen Hua. To many of us Asians, Buddhism is part of our tradition. But to Westerner and to American, it is very, very new. Buddhism entered the Western world in the 19th century. At that time, there's only very few books written about Buddhism, mostly from the academic scholar, which is not much of a value from my point of view. In the 20th century, due to prolific writing of a Zen master, Suzuki, many Westerners began to be familiar with Buddhism. But at that time, the writing giving a very unintentional perception that Buddhism is mostly about Zen, about meditation, and nothing else. When the Dalai Lama left Tibet, many monks followed him and began to propagate Buddhism in the Western world. But to most of the Westerner, Buddhism is all about ritual and mantra and not much. Only when the Venerable Master entered the US and began to train and help the Westerner to understand, he brought with him the huge treasure of sutra, tradition, ritual, precept, and ethics. That is the first time the Western world has a complete picture of what Buddhism is all about. And the seed has been planted. It is up to all of us to nurture that and growing it and help Buddhism to prosper in this time. I'd like to share with you my experience with Shifu. I have been a Buddhist for all my life, and my family is also came from a very Asian traditional Buddhist. I went to Vietnamese temple and then I was a vegetarian for most of my life. One day, the abbot of the Vietnamese temple tell everybody, said, there's a very important Dharma master come to Seattle, and you all have to come to see him. I have no idea who he is. And I have to say that if you see Kuan Yin, you have no idea about Kuan Yin. So we all went to the Seattle temple at that time with no idea, no perceptions. And I just one of the many people to come to see a Chinese Dharma master with no idea who he is. So I sat in a corner, and Venerable Master was giving a talk in Chinese, and Dharma Master Sure do the translation. Suddenly, the Vietnamese abbot told me that, you do the translation to Vietnamese. It was a shock to me because translation, especially translation in Buddhist term, is not easy. So I sat in there really in shock and tremble. And when the Venerable Master started talking, I'm quietly pray for the Buddha and Bodhisattva to help me to do the translation, at least correctly, because I was really afraid I may say something wrong. The Venerable Master started talking, and when he stopped, Dharma Master Sure do the translate into English, and I have to do the translation from English into Vietnamese. Now, the first few sentences is okay, and then I run into a terminology. I don't know how to translate that because I'm not very familiar with those terminology. The Venerable Master stopped and tell Dharma Master Sure, explain it to him. So Dharma Master Sure explained it to me. So now, oh, okay, I know that. I can translate that. So after about a couple of minutes, I ran into some difficulty. I said, well, what does that mean? I have no idea how do I translate that? And the Venerable Master stopped and tell Dharma Master Sure, explain it to him. So Dharma Master Sure explained it, so I said, oh, okay, I can do the translation. That going on for about 5 or 10 times. And I sit in there and say, wow, who is this person? How does he know that I have difficulty? And tell Dharma Master Sure, explain it to me. Maybe he can read my mind? And suddenly Venerable Master stopped and tell Dharma Master Sure, tell him I don't read mind. I was in shock, completely shocked. I sat there, my whole body was shaking. I have no idea who he is. And I had to say that probably I may have a heart attack. That shock is really, really strong. And I sat in there trembling for the rest of the talk, not saying anything. So of course, after the talk, we all left and we went out and bowed to the Venerable Master. When I came to him and bowed to him, suddenly he pulled out from his pocket and gave me a business card. And I said, what is that? When you do business, people exchange business card. But the Venerable Master gave me a card, but he didn't give anybody else. So I say, of course, I say thank you, and I put the card in my pocket and left. I went home, a little bit shocking, but things happened, and for many years, I forget all about it. I have been a cultivator, and I recite sutra every day, twice. Recite Amitabhas, and we are vegetarian, we practice, we cultivate. But for many years, I make no progress. So one day, I told my wife, we cannot cultivate by reading sutra, by reciting Amitabha's name. We need a master. But I know a lot of other people. I met many masters from Tibetan tradition, Vietnamese traditions, and Southern Buddhist tradition. I haven't seen anybody I feel comfortable with. So I told my wife that it is very difficult to cultivate all by yourself without a master, a shifu. So one day, out of complete desperate, I come in and say, we can't go on with this. And I open my drawer. And on top of many business cards, the one business card with the name of Venerable Master there. I will say to my wife, we got to go to the city of 10,000 Buddha. And this is where I think at that time, the Venerable Master has already entered Nirvana. I feel very bad. I told my wife and all my friends, when you see Kuan Yin, you have no idea who that person is. So this is my very short experience with the Venerable Master. Since then, of course, I took all the precepts and vow with the Dharma. And one more thing, throughout my cultivations, every time I run into some issue or some difficulty, I think about it, I think about that. What does that mean? When I open a sutra, there's a sentences that give me the explanation. Every time I have problem, just open any sutra, Lotus Sutra, Avatamsaka Sutra, Amitabha, you see something that give you the answer to your issue. So I strongly believe that the Venerable Master is always here with us. And for our gratitude, in the future, we, all of us, need to do something to help the seed that the Venerable Master has planted in this country and planted in this world. Help them to grow and to prosper. Because of today, in this time of very fast-changing technology, we need to continue to follow the path and continue to nurture the seed that the Venerable Master have given to us. Amitabha.
Okay, I'd never heard that story before. That's a wonderful story. Dr. Guru, thank you for that. Dharma Master Lai is in Seattle, up in Snow Mountain, up near Seattle, and Dr. Guru teaches, is part of the Gold Summit community. The nuns are here from Gold Summit, and a large number of disciples filled a 737 flying down from SeaTac to Santa Rosa to be with us this weekend. So the Northwest, America's Northwest, is a place of real Dharma activity with Buddha Root Farm, with Vancouver Gold Buddha, Gold Summit, and all of the development. So Gold Summit, we didn't hear the details, but they're also expanding, and Snow Mountain is also expanding. So, and then beyond them, up in British Columbia, we have Golden, indeed. So, our fourth panelist tonight, representing lay women, is Sue Rounds, and people may say, Sue, I think I've heard of Sue before. Sue and David. Right, David Rounds was very much a part, very visible part. If you have only come to CTDB since COVID and all, you probably wonder. David is preceded us to the Pure Land. But my first memory, actually, of meeting Sue for the first time was when Dharma Realm Buddhist University had the very first graduation, and Nathaniel, her son, was about 2.5 feet tall, blonde, little toe-headed blonde kid, was dressed up in a black haiqing, and Shifu picked up this young boy and set him on his dining seat in the dining hall, and said, "Okay, young man, let's hear it." And Nathaniel Round said, "The wonderful Dharma Lotus Flower Sutra. Thus I have heard." And he recited in his soprano little boy's voice the first lines of the Lotus Sutra that Sue had taught him. Sue, is that accurate in detail? You remember that?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I certainly remember.
Made a deep impression.
Yeah.
So I'm going to introduce you one more thing I want to say. That for someone to have finished her PhD in education at Harvard, to have raised a family and a son, she has one of the best flower gardens in downtown Ukiah, I must say. She's a famous garden that grows these incredible roses and everything else. And yet, when many people would have sort of said, "Well, that's kind of it," she took on the leadership of Dharma Realm Buddhist University, launched into our new chapter of DRBU, to the point where, and I don't want to steal her thunder here, but WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges that accredits universities, came back for our second round of inspections and gave us the highest degree of certification. Just incredible success. And then said, "We think your program may be able to inform all of the other liberal arts schools in America. You're doing something very important here. We want to learn from you," was part of their report. So anyway, Sue Rounds.
Okay. Gosh, so many things I could say. But maybe I'll just say a little bit about DRBU, because that's been my focus for the last 11 years. And while I was involved in DRBU at the very beginning, I was here and worked on the catalog when we were trying to get approved by the state. And I sort of kept in touch over the years. After that, I went out and had a career in teacher education. But when I came back, well, I will tell this story. I told it last night, so if you were here last night, you already heard this story. But I had retired twice from my job. I retired in 2000 from being an administrator of a teacher education program, and I continued to teach in that program for another 12 years, and then I retired again. And that, when my boss at the time, that was a second retirement party, and he gave me this beautiful crystal vase, and he said, "We're not going to give you a third party, you know." So I was prepared to enjoy my retirement, and my son and his wife had just told David and me that they were expecting a baby, our first grandchild, in September of 2014. But earlier that year, sometime, I don't know, maybe this summer, Dharma Master Sure called me up, and she said, "Dharma Master Liang and I want to come over to your house, and we want to ask you to be president of DRBU." What? Well, you don't say no to nuns. You don't say, "No, I'm too busy, can't see you." So I said, "Well, you come on over." But I hung up the phone and I ran into David's study and I said, "Boy, the nuns are coming over here. They want me to be president of DRB. What should I say?" And he said, "Oh, they already talked to me. I think it's a wonderful idea." So that was it. So for the next 11 years, I'm actually officially retiring June 30th, but we just had our big commencement, and I went through several boxes of Kleenexes and so forth. But so let me just tell you a little bit about why I think it's so wonderful. And when people say Shifu is still here, I know that he is here because DRBU would not be thriving the way it's thriving now if he weren't still driving the bus. So when I took over in 2014, we had 12 students. 12 students. I think 6 in each program, a BA program, the MA program. Today we have 50 students, a little bit over 50 students, and next year, if all goes well and all the international problems with immigration don't get in the way, we should have 60 students. So that's in just 11 years. And what's so special about Shifu's vision for DRBU, today I looked up some of the mission statements for, like Harvard and Yale, and every university has an inspiring mission, and they all say we're going to teach our students, they're going to have intellectual, let me see, what did I Yale is going to improve the world today and for future generations, blah, blah, blah. Harvard is going to, their students are going to have intellectual transformation, blah, 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 and so forth. Well, that sounds great. But Shifu's brilliant. There's something missing in all of that. Because it doesn't say, how are you going to do that? How are you going to change people to make them better? And that was what Shifu said. You have a university. Yes, I wanted to offer courses. I want people to come from all over the world. There will be hundreds of people. You people don't have big enough vision. In 100 years, this is going to be bigger than Harvard and Yale. But he said, it isn't just about the academics. You have to change people's hearts and minds. And that has to be part of the education. And that was what inspired me to sign on, how many years ago it was. And here at 84, I'm still, I'm not doing it anymore because I am retiring, I promise. But I'm still going to help, and I'm still going to be involved. I just don't have to go to the meetings all the time. And this was what made the university so special. And it's what has continued to draw people here. And what's so interesting to me now is, of course, we originally got people, maybe they knew somebody, maybe one of you had a son or a daughter, and they told, word of mouth, whatever. But now people are finding us in the oddest ways, They go on the web, and they're looking for something, and they don't know what it is exactly, but they're not finding it anywhere else. And then they find out about DRBU, and it's like, wow, I can't believe there's a place like this. And when we interview them, I have some quotes here of some of the things that people say. Let me see. I wasn't sure what I was going to say tonight, so I wrote down a lot of stuff. And I should also say that right now we have students from all over the world. We have students from, are you ready? Argentina, Canada, China, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Norway, Russia, South Africa, Taiwan, Thailand, the United States, and Vietnam. We have students from every continent except Antarctica, and I don't think we're going to make that very, we're going to get there.
Penguins.
So students, when they come here, say things like, I saw so much suffering in the world, what could I do? Another one. I always wanted to do something for others. Everywhere I look, I see issues that need to be fixed. But for me to do anything for anyone, I need to get rid of my ego, my selfishness. Does that sound like somebody who would have known Shifu if she were here at the time? I came here because deep inside my heart, I know that this place is going to make me a better person inside and out. And that's the prerequisite for making a difference in the world, right? She's from India. And that to me is what's different, that's what's missing from, and this, I don't mean to trash Harvard and Yale and all those other places. They have plenty of trouble today, and I don't want to make it worse for them. Not that I have the power to make it worse for them, of course, but that's what's missing, I think, from the education that is the prevalent model. And that's what was so brilliant about Shifu's vision here. It was, we were going to help people change themselves from the better, right from the inside out. And we're going to support them to do that in this amazing environment. Another one, at the end of the day, life is one big test to see how you will react. Remember Shifu? Everything's a test to see what you will do. This was a student coming here. I have no doubt in my mind that DRBU will install in me all the right tools and skills, laying a strong foundation in me so that no matter what may come, I will remain steadfast. I love that word, steadfast. Another one, I am a Theravada monk who is passionate about learning, teaching the Dharma, and English. My hope is to continue my monastic life while freely sharing my language knowledge with anyone who wants to learn. I dream of helping the Hmong community, that's his community in Myanmar, and others through the teachings of the Buddha. And a nun, this is from a nun from Vietnam. As a Buddhist monastic practicing the Bodhisattva path, I always strive to be goodness to others. I dream of opening a free class for children in remote and impoverished areas where they cannot afford to go to school. Does that remind you of anybody? You all know the stories of what did Shifu do when he was 19, had a school for kids, free school. So I'd also just want to say that educating the Sangha was such an important thing that Shifu had always stressed. And ever since we started these new programs, we have always had monastics in the program. We had, in our first graduating class in 2019, we had, it was 4 nuns? They graduated in 2019. Yeah, and anyway, there was 4 nuns. We've had nuns from other way places, and also we have two monks, both Jin Wei-Sure and Jin Chuan-Sure did master's program at DRBU. So, and we've always had at least 1 or 2 monastics in the program. Okay, I know the time is almost up. So I told you what students say when they come, when they're so happy to have found, they can't believe that there's a place like DRBU. When students leave here are some things they've said. Through the texts we read in class discussions, my understanding of the Buddhist teaching and myself is deepened and broadened. I'm learning to be more mindful, open-minded, non-judging, and present. As soon as I stepped onto the grounds, I knew that I was home, even though I'd never been here before. Another one. What I have learned at DRBU permeates everything I do in every moment of my life because it has changed my worldview. DRBU has taught me how to care for and nurture the roots of my life. Another one. I have discovered the light within me. I know that after I leave here, even in the darkest times, that light will never be extinguished. And finally, I didn't like the person I was when I came here, but I like the person I have become. I leave here to enter the world as a real human being. And when we hear things like that, we know that what we're doing here is working, and it is, I firmly believe it's the only thing that will change the world. It's the work that we do here and the way we help the students. And so my dream is I won't be here to see it. I'm 84 now, and I don't think I'll be here to see the fulfillment of Shifu's vision when there will be hundreds of students here, and it will be the equal of Harvard or Yale. But I firmly believe that that will happen, and maybe some of you here are young enough that you will be here when that happens. But I guess somehow I'll know wherever I am, I'll somehow know that it happened. So that I think that's enough. I think our time is up, but I'm just so happy and honored to have been a part of this journey from the beginning when Shifu first set up DRBU and to see what it's become now. Thank you very much.
I was told by the organizers that 9 o'clock is not our stopping time. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9:15.
We have official permission to go a few more minutes, so don't yell at me if you think he's forgotten the time. Right. So we've heard from Dharmaster Lai, looking at the place that some of the seeds that were planted that are blooming in this very building in this city. We heard from Dharmaster Liang about beyond City of 10,000 Buddhas, all the different branches and amazing stories about the water, land, and air and the world religions gathering. I might mention at the United World Religions Conference, these folders were handed out. This is from that conference. I've carried it ever since. We heard from Dr. Wu this amazing story about a monk who doesn't read people's minds, but somehow knows. And when the time, what do they say? When the time is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So, and then Sue gave us a remarkable biography of faith and practice. We have filled the 10,000 Buddhist Hall tonight. Folks flown in, driven in, bussed in from all over the U.S. and Canada to be here. The 30th time we have gathered in memory of Shifu's passing. But as the years go by and we realize how those seeds are bearing fruit, it's become more joyful than it is a time of sorrow. Tomorrow there will be 5 times this many people, perhaps. I'm going to call on every one of us to be